Hello. It's no secret that COVID-19 was devastating for US economy in March and April. And here's an example from New York Times, an article titled "Pretty Catastrophic Month for Retailers and Now a Race to Survive." This is a long article. I'm not going to get into details, but what I found interesting was this chart that showed a very dramatic drop in food and retail services, 8.7%. Relative to the prior month. Having looked at this chart, I figured, let's go ahead and get that entire data set and see if we can find some other interesting trends there. So here's a quick report I put together, and what I'm going to do in this video is I will go through a bunch of metrics that are provided by the Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce provides a lot of data sets. Some of them are still as up to date as February, but they do provide some advanced data sets. So now we're looking at advanced data set for retail. So what we will do is we will take a look at these metrics that are provided in this data set, and we'll see what March of 2020 looked like as a result of COVID-19. So as you look at this report, U.S. economic indicators, March 2020, and I have three different types of charts that we will be looking at as we go through these metrics. So the first is we're just going to take a look at the overall trend for the metrics selected. So right now we're looking at retail trade, and the data starts all the way in January 1st, 1992, and it ends in March 1st, 2020, where it's as of end of March of 2020. You can see that there is a lot of ups and downs in this trend. There's a lot of what we call seasonality. The numbers usually go up around December, right? So every time we see a peak, that's Christmas. Then they go up in January, and they start going up in March. So, and that virtually happens everywhere. January, there's a spike. So December there's a spike, January it comes down, February it's also pretty low, and then we have a rebound in March. And we could see that similar thing happen in 2019. December big spike, drop, but then we didn't get a rebound in March. So let's see if we can take this chart and add more information to it so that we can get a better understanding of what actually happened in March. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to compare this metric. So right now we're looking at retail trend versus the prior period. So now we see the metric above the same in yellow line. Okay, so drop in March. And then we're seeing the yellow green bars are the bars that did better this month versus the prior month, and bars that did worse this month versus the prior month. So basically you see that after the December of 2019 we had 3 bad months. So in every month sales actually dropped. However, it's really hard to understand anything interesting from this. We see a lot of ups and downs, a lot of green and red. So this chart in and of itself does not really tell a good story. However, if we click on this chart, a story becomes really clear. So this chart, what we're doing is we're comparing our current value with the same metric but a year ago. So now we see that March was definitely not good for the US economy. And when we take a look at the overall trade, so on the y-axis on the left, we see the variance, how much is different, and on the y-axis on the right, we see the absolute value. So 1 million, that's in millions. So we're looking at $1 trillion mark here. So we saw a drop in March, and then we've never seen such a big drop before. So we had a 4% drop just in 1 month relative to what the value was a year ago. And you see the last time we saw anything resembling this was during the recession of 2008, 2009. So what I'm gonna do is just go through some of these metrics and see how different industry did. So the first one is motor vehicle and parts dealers. So we see starting from 92, history, recession, growth, another big drop. Again, let's look at it in terms of period, then in terms of year over year. So you see that we had a almost 24% drop for motor vehicles and parts dealers. So obviously, nothing like this has ever happened before. And from now on, you can already see that metrics versus prior period, which is the metric that New York Times used, is not really very useful. I'm not really sure why they use that metric in their chart, but clearly, if you want to compare and make any sort of conclusions on the severity of the situation, it's comparing to the prior year that's a lot more impactful. So we will just stick between metric and metric versus prior year from now on. So let's take a look at auto industry. Again, another huge drop. How big is it? Enormous. So we see a 25% drop in auto and motor vehicles. What about furniture and home furnishing? Insane, right? Huge drop. In fact, even during the recession, we have never seen a drop like this for the furniture and home furnishing stores. Now let's look at the electronics and appliance stores. So we see that electronics and appliance store sales are going up, dropped down, and they were kind of flat, and in fact were trending down a little bit. But if we take a look at the prior year, so we see this red, so basically there's a downward trend, but again, a huge drop of 16% in electronics and appliance stores. The next one is building materials, garden equipment, and supplies dealers. So we see that sales actually went up. Well, Home Depots and other stores like that were open. So if you take a look at the variance, we see that actually, yes, people stayed home, but they were still able to work on their projects. So people were able to go to Home Depots and buy building materials, so they were able to do gardening and home improvements. The next one is food and beverage stores. That's, I guess, where the toilet papers fits in as well. So we see a huge spike in sales. So normally we sit at about $140 billion. Sales spiked up all the way into $160 billion. And relative to last year, you could see that this was almost a 27% jump. So if you look at the entire history since 92, again, the country has never seen anything like this ever before. Similar thing happens for the grocery stores. Again, a big jump and a huge variance of 28.8%. Now, the thing to ponder here is, are we buying perishable versus non-perishable goods? So if we buy non-perishable goods, yes, one could argue this is a great story if I buy toothpaste or toilet paper, but by me stocking up and buying month's supply of those items, I may not come back for those items for months. So we're not sure what this is going to do to the industry. We don't see a huge jump in health and personal care stores. But it's also a smaller category. It's about 60 billion. Just to compare, if you look at grocery stores, we're looking at double of that. So in health and personal care, we don't see a whole lot of changes. The next one is gasoline stations. And then here we see that things are coming down a lot. So let's see how bad of the drop that was historically. So we see that during the last recession, we saw a big drop, but obviously by people having to stay home. Also, I'm wondering if lower gas prices had something to do with this, because we're looking at millions of dollars, sales measured in millions of dollars, so volume and price may have had something to do with this decrease. Clothing and clothing accessory stores. So again, we see the Christmas effect, huge spikes for the holiday season, and then immediate rebound in March. That rebound never happened in 2020. In fact, we had a huge dip to the level of roughly 1997. So we have not had sales this low since 1997. And if we take a look at the prior year, we see the biggest drop that we've seen before, the drop of 51%. So the clothing stores and clothing accessory stores have suffered greatly. The next one is another relatively small category of sporting goods, hobby, musical instruments, and bookstores. My guess is that those stores were deemed as non-essential, and you see a huge jump. So if we remember what happened with home improvement and gardening, we saw sales go up, and then for sporting goods and bookstores, we see the sales go down quite a bit. Again, in the history of this country, we have never seen a drop like this in a single period ever. There's a bunch of other metrics that I skipped just because I want to keep this video a little bit shorter than usual. So the last one I want to talk about is food services and drinking places. So I interpret it as restaurants and bars, and we see some variability in seasonality in numbers going up and down, but again, this enormous drop, the country has never seen anything like this before. Normally you see growth other than the recession time in 2008, 2009. We're looking at a 24% drop in that industry. This industry is completely destroyed, decimated. So, and again, we're just looking at March. So we're gonna see the April numbers next month. 2 periods like this cannot be good for any industry. Just to summarize, March of 2020 was a really tough for U.S. economy. I will be posting a link to this dashboard. It will be publicly available, and you're welcome to go there and play with it by yourself. A quick teaser, this is a small subset of metrics that are part of this dashboard. So over the next several days and weeks, we will be taking a look at the entire spectrum of metrics available by the Commerce Department. You'll be comparing a lot of different things, and again, the same idea over time, over prior year. So you'll be able to draw some interesting conclusions. Some of the things that would be interesting, for example, is we're going to be adding information related to recessions and presidencies. So you'll be able to see how presidents did with respect to the economies, which presidents did positive or negative impact on the economy. And with that, I just wanted to thank you again for listening to this video, and invite you to play with the dashboard yourself. There's going to be some interesting educational pieces you're going to find, and please come again in a few days for the next one. Thanks. Bye.